All right, so we're off here. So what is your analysis now? You have this, and apologies everybody, the cardboard live is not working. I'm going to work on that, but Esper Lurrus Xerox with versus Breach Tinker, and Lurrus is in the main, by the way.
Yeah, this is I mean, it's only been a couple days of testing, but this is the kind of list that looks like it's going to benefit from Lurrus the most. Um, my attempts to put Lurrus as a companion have not led to very good results. But this deck with Lurrus in the main seems to be it replicates the old Esper Lurrus deck from when it was broken pretty well. It allows you to do the broken Lotus Lurrus Lotus, not with the same consistency as having it as your zero cost companion, but it kind of replicates that a little bit.
Yeah, and I know you've said so on your Twitter and your streams and stuff that you were for unbanning Lurrus, right? Um,
Absolutely, yeah.
do you think?
The way they're doing it
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
really nice. The write up they put together was quite good. I thought it addressed the fact that it's kind of an experiment, right? They're
Yeah.
willing to reban it if it was problematic, which I think is a really good approach, and I'd actually like that approach for more things and more formats and more cards in the future. I think the idea of unbannings is exciting to players, and if players are willing to put up with the fact that there could possibly be a broken format after an unbanning and you might have to reban it. And if no one is, or if only the minority are mad about that, then you can end up, bringing out a lot of cards and having them end up be safe to include in your format.
Yeah, I think an unban feels like a positive, like we're adding something, and a
Right.
ban feels like a negative. So yeah, I think people get way more excited for unbans than
Historically,
bans, no matter what
they
the
don't
card.
like to do unbans because they've got a lot of bad feedback for the last time they tried to do something like this. They're pretty sure the one that sticks out in my mind is Golgari Grave Troll in Modern, where they
Yeah,
unbanned it and then very quickly had to reban it due to some dredge cards being printed.
is that the only
And
time that ever
people,
happened? I don't know.
I couldn't tell you, not much of a, a historian,
Oh, okay,
but
whatever.
um, they did get a lot of negative feedback on that, and I hope that the vintage community doesn't do that, and that we can try unbanning some more cards after.
Yeah. Well, what else would need to be unbanned in vintage? Is there
Nothing
new?
needs to be unbanned, but there
Oh,
are definitely like there are definitely cards that just they don't seem like they are as powerful as they used to be. The power level of vintage has shot up quite a lot in the last few years, and the metrics you need to be played in vintage are it's a high bar.
yeah, and I know you've talked about on your streams about how vintage was in a really good spot and it was in your words the best format in that it was the healthiest.
Right.
Um I guess what I'm getting at is did they need to unban Lurrus or was this just like them just trying to do something?
No, they didn't, and I'm actually
Oh,
was
okay.
pretty surprised they did because, like I said, what you said is correct. I think Vintage was in an incredibly balanced and healthy metagame, so I'm surprised that they took the risk. I think they got a little bit of pushback or prodding from the community over the last few months. Hashtag free cat and Matt Murray, made a made a Magic Online account, unbanned Lurrus, and actually played against a WotC employee. So
Right.
you got the idea going in their heads that it's something they could try to do,
Right.
and that the vintage
Right.
community would be open to doing. And I think for the most part, the vintage community was pretty okay with the idea of an unbanned Lurrus because it's just fundamentally not the same card as was when it was originally banned.
That's true, yeah. I mean, it uh it just works completely differently now. So
Yeah.
it's just a completely different card in some sense. I mean, the companions when I first started streaming back in April of last year, the companions were just all over the place in vintage. People were trying even the crappy companions on our streams. And now at this point, other than Lurrus, are there any relevant companions?
No. You
Oh,
can
okay.
play Lutri. You can play Lutri.
Okay.
The downside of Lutri is that you don't get to play four Force of Wills in your deck. The Lutri deck
Right.
does work, and Lutri can actually be a bonus in that deck, but The downside of not having 4 Force of Wills is fairly high. Zerta is just not really strong enough. And it kind of seems like even Lurrus might not be worth it at 3 extra mana as a companion.
Yeah, I tried Lurrus. I tried Lutri a couple of times with the three Force of Wills in the board, and just I felt
Yeah.
like every round I just kept taking Lutri off as my companion and bringing the Force of Wills in for games 2 and 3. So I don't know about that one, but
Yeah. Vintage is super high power level right now, and having
yeah,
a Force of Will as a stopgap for people doing silly things is fairly important.
yeah, yeah. Um,
But this game has been very slow. Both players are just kind of building their mana, though the Lurrus side has quite a bit more mana with the mana crypt, but nothing crazy has happened on this in this game yet.
Yeah, so I think people, and maybe some people watching our channel, are not used to watching vintage. I think there's a misconception that the games end in 5 minutes because the decks are so explosive, but a lot of games probably play out like this, right? Where people are just pondering and cantripping and trying to load up their hands with treats.
Yeah, for sure. I actually swapped the sides. The one who has the mana crypt is the Grixis Tinker player who just slammed an opposition agent in response to a fetch land, which
Yep.
is a good feeling. Let's see what I
Yeah.
want to see what happens here.
Yeah. Opposition agent, not the best card for webcam magic, but we'll
Oh no.
we'll figure it out.
I can't even imagine. I've actually never seen an opposition agent in webcam magic. This seems like a challenge.
Yeah. Fortunately, we have open deck list partially
That
for
does
reasons
help.
like this, rather than fanning out an entire deck trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to fix Cardboard Live, everybody. It must be buggy at the moment. Well, I got Jesse's
So
deck
for the
working.
people in chat, basically the opposition agent player is playing the Birgi Storm list from the Mana Traders 15K, but they didn't have enough Birgis, so they played some other 3 drops instead. They're playing things like opposition agent and Hull Breacher. It's got a
Yeah.
Flusterstorm on an Ancestral. Okay, this is a stack right here.
Yep.
It's unfortunate with the webcam magic. It is a little hard to build the beautiful stack picture, huh?
A little bit. Yeah. A little bit.
Because
Um.
this would be a Twitter worthy stack picture already.
You might be right. Yeah. There's two ancestrals on the board. Um. Opposition agent. Has
Fetch.
opposition agent made a big impact on vintage?
It's kind of a niche role player.
Okay.
It's similar to the effect that I would I don't know, Karn Scion of Urza. Remember during like the PO era where people were playing Karn Scion of Urza in their sideboards? I don't know
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
Yeah, so it has a similar presence, I think, in Vintage right now. So you'll see it in Doomsday sideboards and sometimes these Grixis Mana Crypt decks or maybe a bug deck. It does a very specific thing, and because it doesn't catch as wide of a net as you would think it might, it ends up being only brought in for very specific situations. Obviously, very good against the deck Doomsday and pretty good in the Doomsday Mirror. So
Yep. All right. Let's see what happens here. Um. Another fluster from Jesse. Yeah, you're right. This would have been, if this were digital. This would have been a
oh
crazy
god,
picture.
I don't like resolving Flusterstorm anywhere. Paper, paper, digital. It's a nightmare everywhere.
That's true.
It's a
That's true.
cool card, but it can make some very uh problematic discussions. I had a situation at one of my Eternal Weekend events where I was playing against a player who didn't speak great English,
Hmm.
and so they like misconstrued what I meant with the number of Flusterstorm copies.
Oh, in
And
paper,
that
you mean?
in
Oh, yeah.
paper, yeah. And then online, everyone knows online Flusterstorm's kind of a nightmare as well.
Right, 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 right.
But even in paper, like I said, hey, I have this Flusterstorm with this many copies, and they thought I had one more or one less, depending on how they, how many copies. What does copy mean? Does that mean the Flusterstorm and the number of copies? You got to be very clear in paper Magic what's going on, and that gets
That's true.
exuberated when you have a language difference too.
That's true. Um, by the way, everybody, I do have Cardboard Live working right now, so you can see the decks, and uh, maybe someone could confirm that they can see them at home. And a question from chat: are proxies allowed in these matches? Yeah, we tend to allow just a couple of proxies here and there on our streams, just because, unlike playing digital, we're not able to just swap decks on like a couple hours notice.
All right, so
So,
who has the last Flusterstorm here?
I believe Jesse did. Yeah, Jesse did. So now we're getting a response to,
Who's getting dazed? What's happening?
I think, Days. So I can put the player audio live for everybody for a moment.
So,
I can unmute it. I just forgot.
I think so. I think so. I think so.
Yeah, because all your counters
Yeah.
get countered, then my Ancestral's on the
Because
stack.
mine's on top of
Yeah,
opposition agent.
so I'll draw 3.
yeah.
We're
That's
we're
right.
lucky that both players are tapped out. That made that Flusterstorm resolution very
Okay.
easy.
Yeah. So I guess he countered the final copy of Fluster with Days. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Muted the players now. So opposition agent. All of that was to resolve an opposition agent, basically, and it looks like opposition agent stuck. And now he gets to keep whatever Evan was going to fetch for, or basically choose whatever Evan
Oh,
could search for.
did he just? He's gonna get his opponent's Mystic Sanctuary and bring back. Oh, that's so good. Oh my. Oh, that is. It just goes into play. What does opposition agent read? Does this go into play?
Yeah, it goes into play. It's whatever they would search for, you get. So
No.
yeah,
When it's searching they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled. You may cast. Okay, so it doesn't go directly into play, but we
oh, my
have
bad. Yeah.
a sideboard or out of the game mystical sanctuary that we can put into play next turn to put the ancestral recall back on top.
Oh yeah, my mistake. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Which is still good, not as backbreaking.
Yeah. All right, we're seeing a mana crypt trigger here.
Yeah. The Grixis player is definitely set to run away with this game, though. Though both players did end up drawing 3 there, right? I do think that happened.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Yep.
The problem is, Esper Lurrus player had to daze back a land, so they are very far behind in mana.
Yeah. So there's Evan's Mystic Sanctuary putting Ancestral on top.
Crazy. That's some kind of magic card. I'm not happy about Mystical Sanctuary. Mystic Sanctuary.
Mystic Sanctuary. It's it's made an impact on all formats, but how has it been in Vintage? Has it been too
It's
good?
insane.
Are
It's
people...
It's format defining. It's a
Okay.
one of that's format defining, which is crazy. But it just lets any blue deck that has entered a state of not draw go, but top decking.
Mhm.
Just all their fetches become their best spell.
Gotcha.
It's crazy. Mystic
Alright, so-
Sanctuary was on the ban list on Monday. It was for Modern, I believe.
Yeah, for Modern.
That one in Modern they just loop cryptic commands. They don't put ancestrals and things back on top. But
Yeah. Also, Deprive. Are you familiar with Deprive?
okay, sure. Yeah, it's
Counter a spell, return a land.
So we resolved an ancestral. So the next scariest thing that this player could do is Grixis. Tinker. Sorry, not Grixis, Tinker. Just Tinker. I should put the names up somewhere so that I can refer to them by their names. Jesse,
Yeah, it's Jesse on the right.
And
Evan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All I have in front of me, I don't have the stream in front of me, so I have just the boards. No guidance.
That works. All right, so a scoop from Evan after the Tinker. What would he have tinkered for, do you think?
Okay, Tinker for Bolus's Citadel.
Mhm.
And you just run away from there. You basically have the ability to cast anything that's on your top of your deck. Your life total as a mana source lets you do basically anything you want. But you have things like Bug keeping some of those graveyard decks in check. You have Bant Archon, which is basically the newest version of Noblefish. Um,
Yeah,
that keeps all the combo decks in check. Archon of Emeria, which was printed recently. I don't know which set actually.
that was Zendikar Rising. Yeah.
Zendikar Horizon 2/3 flyer with a Rule of Law on it, as well as the 3-mana Thalia effect of non-basic center tap for your opponent.
Yeah.
Those two combine for really taxing effect against most of the decks that are being played now. The combo decks obviously want to play more than one spell in a turn, but even the fair blue decks play multiple spells in a turn.
True. And what about did you mention Oath? Is Oath still good right now?
Oath is playable, but Oath hasn't been super strong in a very long time. It's
Yeah.
something you can choose to do if you want to do it, and you can win playing it. There's one really strong Oath player on Magic Online, Miharu Fuyamiya.
Mhm.
She always plays a Rug Oko controlling Oath list and does fairly well. So
Yeah. And I know this is talking about another format, Legacy, but Legacy, Dreadhorde, and Astrolab just got banned. Are any of those
and
cards?
Oko, right?
What's that?
And Oko.
Oh, did I miss Oko? Yeah, Oko. Sorry, Oko, Dreadhorde, Arcanist, and Arkham's Astrolabe.
Yeah.
But are any of
that?
those cards an issue in Vintage? Like, how prevalent are they, if any?
Arkham's Astrolabe sees 0 play.
Mhm.
It's hard to be playing a bunch of snow lands in your deck.
True.
Oko sees a good amount of play in the various Bug and Rug style decks, these more mid-rangey controlling decks, and it is a good card in a role player, but not overbearing like in other formats. The main reason for that is that many decks in Vintage play main deck Pyroblast, and also there's also a large fraction of decks in the Vintage metagame that just don't really play permanents, whether it's a dredge deck or a storm deck. A lot of decks are not playing these permanents that Oko would be turning off like it does in Legacy. So Oko, pretty fair card. I think actually Vintage is a pretty perfect home for it because it gets to do some cool aggressive things with Moxen, where you're turning your Moxens into Elk and attacking. But it's kept in check by unfair elements as well as Pyroblasts. And
I
then
like
the
that.
third one, I guess, is the best card in Vintage, and that's of the ones we've just talked about, and that's Dreadhorde Arcanist. And Dreadhorde Arcanist basically facilitates the entire fair game plan of multiple different blue-based decks.
Right. I guess being able to flashback Ancestral Recall is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the big one.
That's
You'll see a lot of
peak.
these fair decks. A lot of these fair decks, they'll have a turn around turn 4 where they cast Ancestral Recall, they put it back on top with Mystic Sanctuary off a fetch land. They cast Ancestral Recall, and then they flash it back with Dreadhorde Arcanist. And suddenly they just cast 3 Ancestral Recalls in a turn, and you have no chance of ever coming back.
You're a goner.
Yeah, so even like these fair blue decks are kind of combo-y in that sense, like very high synergy, high value plays.
And one of my favorite cards from the last couple of years that when I saw it spoiled, I thought this is going to be a big player in Legacy. I'm going to get 4 of these in foil, and I'm just going to have them on standby. Lavinia. I thought Lavinia was going to be great, but it really has done well in Vintage, right? Lavinia has been a big part of the format over the last, I don't know, 2 years.
Yeah, Lavinia has had a very interesting story in Vintage, I think, because it came out and Vintage players were extremely upset. And the reason is because it's asymmetrical. It doesn't limit you, it only limits your opponent. And a lot of people were, talking about bans and restrictions for Lavinia very early on. It turns out that Lavinia is hard to cast. Blue-white is a hard cost. And because she's not really a turn 2 play, you really want her on turn 1. When you play her on turn 1, that way you turn off your opponent's ability to play Moxen. That's the big play. And so Lavinia saw a lot of immediately saw a lot of play, and the biggest reason was because Paradoxical Outcome was the go-to deck for combo players.
Yep.
And Lavinia was super good both in the mirror and just versus PO players in general. So it saw a lot of heavy play in the beginning, and obviously as Pio started to decline as the popular deck, I think the use of Lavinia has also started to fall off. She's
Oh,
just
really?
not as
Okay.
strong as she used to be when Pio was such a huge metagame share. She's still good, but the amount of decks that are restricted by her seems to have reduced because the fair decks that play Lavinia, typically the Jeskai decks, are they don't play Lavinia very fast. They don't play Lavinia on turn one, right? The decks that were playing Lavinia on turn one were the PO decks that have Mox Opal and all these extra ways to get a blue and a white mana on turn one. So when you don't get the Lavinia fast enough, it's just not as strong. And then there's like a lot of Pyroblast floating around, and Pyroblast is just a very clean answer to Lavinia. So she's still around and she's still played, and she probably will start seeing more play when people start playing more of these Esper Lurrus decks. But it ended up being a pretty reasonable card for Vintage, though an
What?
annoying one.
Well, I guess it depends, but was Esper or Blue White not really played before?
No. So the Esper decks are typically combo decks. So
Okay.
Pio was the predominant Esper deck for a while. And then you basically never really saw Esper control decks because the premier. I can't stress this enough. Pyroblast is really important in this format.
Yeah.
Pyroblast answers so much. It answers these powerful planeswalkers like Dak Faded and Narset. It answers Ancestral Recall 1 for 1. It doesn't get countered by other Pyroblasts. So Pyroblast is super important. So you'll find that most of the controlling decks in Vintage play red and play Pyroblast. That was obviously an exception at the time of the original printing of Lurrus, where the best controlling decks were Esper because of Lurrus. And those decks always played Lavinia because Lavinia was pretty backbreaking in a mirror match where both players are trying to use Black Lotus and recur, Black Lotus from the yard and play fast Moxen and that kind of thing.
Yep. So that was a, in case anybody missed it, that was a Force of Negation on Demonic Tutor, hard cast by sacking the Black Lotus. It was a proxy.
Yeah, that's a
so-
really interesting one because that's a kind of a play that's actually changed in the last few years. The typical old school philosophy is you let the tutor resolve and you counter what they get. That's not the case anymore because of Mystic Sanctuary. If you
True.
let the
Yeah.
demonic resolve and they get an ancestral recall and you counter the ancestral recall, they can just buy it back with their land.
True. Force of Negation also changing things, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because it exiles.
Yeah, so that's like a weird thing where, oh, maybe I can get the ancestral with the negation, but what if they play the ancestral on my turn and then I can't cast the negation because it's of the fortune negation's restriction. There's like a lot of actual gameplay decisions on when are you supposed to cast your spells. Am I supposed to cast this ancestral while they're tapped out on my turn so they can't Pyroblast or Flusters from me, or am I supposed to cast it on their turn so I don't get negated? It's a delicate balance and a lot of times a math game.
Yep. Polluted Delta revealed off the Dark Confidant, so a free card.
It's a powerful Bob.
Yeah. How is Bob doing right now in Vintage? Because it's
So
faded
basically
from all the other formats.
Bob saw basically very little play until the printing of Lurrus, and then it saw quite a lot of play because it's a card advantage engine that gets recurred with Lurrus. It saw some play because of when Narset was around. Its draw engine is not actually a draw; it's put into your hand, so it gets around the restriction of Narset. And then it faded off after Lurrus was banned.
That makes sense.
And
It is
and you
really
saw-
synergistic with Lurrus because he gains
Yeah.
life and everything.
Saw a little bit of play recently when breach decks were trying to find different ways of drawing cards and getting card advantage. But it also has a problem where it dies to Ren and 6's ping.
Oh, right. I always forget about Ren
Which-
and 6 because it's just not in Legacy, but yeah.
It's not played anywhere else anymore. But
It's played
Ren
in
and
Modern
6
quite a bit.
Oh, I guess that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I haven't been playing it. Yeah.
I do expect it to if the Esper Lurrus deck or any kind of Lurrus deck ends up being a role player in the metagame, I do expect that you'll see more Bobs than before.
Yep. Okay, another hit from Mana Crypt there. A little bit of lag on Jesse's side. Sorry about that, everybody. A bolt, I'm assuming, on one of the confidants. Yep.
trying to stem the bleeding a little bit, but Jesse fell behind very heavily to the ancestral recalls from the opposing side, and I think a strip mine as well. So this mana crypt is helping a little bit in recovering the mana loss, but
Yep.
ooh,
Ouch.
that is the biggest one you can hit in this deck.
Dig through time, I guess, is bigger, right? Or wait, no.
They're the same. They're both the same.
Oh, they're the same. Okay.
Do they play both of them in this list? I don't know what Evan chose to do. Let's go take a look.
Yeah,
Evan
he dig through time earlier.
chose-
He dig through time
Okay,
just a
yeah.
few minutes ago.
They,
Yeah.
I know that the Sunny Days people were playing both of them. In the list that I tried, I cut one of them just to ease the pain a little bit. But for the most part, it's not a huge worry. You can gain a bunch of life back because Lurrus has lifelink.
Yeah.
So most of the time, you're not at too big of a threat of dying to your Dark Confidant, but it is something to keep in mind that you are playing 4 Force of Will and 2 Delve spells. Those are the big ones.
Yeah, and I actually can't remember if we talked about this before we started streaming or afterwards, but this seems to be the big question in Vintage right now, as it was in all the other formats. After the companion rule change, should Lurrus be in the main or in the sideboard?
Yeah, we were talking about it pre-show a little bit.
Okay.
It's obviously still up for debate. It's only been 2 days.
Yeah.
But my early testing has shown that the 3 mana cost of being a companion is very high. A lot of decks can't afford to be paying that early in the game, so you're basically using Lurrus as a way to beat a top deck battle later in the game, which makes these decks that like this deck used to play Lurrus as a companion.
Ooh, Hull Breacher in response
Oh
to
my
Treasure
lord.
Cruise.
That's another new card, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't
Well,
mean to cut
that's
you
a way
off.
to come back in this game. No, that's a big swing. Notably, the Esper Lurrus deck doesn't play Pyroblast, so you can't just kill that on the stack. It does have the follow-up Deadweight though. Vintage All-Star. I really Deadweight was the card that got memed a lot in the old Lurrus era. God, this format is so broken. Look, people are playing Deadweight in Vintage, but I love it. I love the idea that Deadweight
I
is
love it
playable
too.
Magic
Yeah, I
card.
love it. A part of me wants to watch the world burn, right?
Yeah.
Let's play some Deadweights.
But that is like a really big disadvantage of playing this Esper deck is you don't have Pyroblast. So this whole Breacher not only just countered the Treasure Cruise, but it also netted 3 mana of any color in the form of treasure.
Right.
But yeah. So I was talking about it a little bit, but the companion cost is very high. I actually think that the decision that Evan made were moving the Lurruses to the main deck of this deck, this particular Esper like tempo-y control deck, it is definitely the correct one. I think decks that used to be built around Lurrus, like this Esper deck, you can't afford to be paying the companion cost, so you need to put the Lurruses in the main deck.
Right.
Whereas decks that use Lurrus as an endgame extra engine card, those decks can afford to have it as a companion.
Yeah.
The big question will be like, how good is this Esper deck? How good are decks that play Lurrus in the main? And that one is one we definitely have no idea what the answer is yet.
Yeah, and will it turn into everybody plays 3 Lurruses in the main, and everybody's doing back what they were doing in spring of last year, Lotus, Lurrus, Lotus to start the game?
Right. That's obviously the big concern. I think already I'm not seeing that as a huge issue, though that is something that this deck is trying to replicate. They're trying to replicate the old Esper Companion Lurrus deck that always had the Lurrus for the Black Lotus power play. This deck gets to do it sometimes when you have both a Lurrus and a Black Lotus in your hand, but I think
Yeah.
it will feel... Maybe you'll feel a little bit less bad because it shouldn't happen as often when one of the cards is restricted and one of them is right now. It's only a 2 of in this player's deck. I was testing it as a 3 of, which kind of felt like a lot. Oh no, there's a 3 of in this deck. Sorry.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Okay.
I think you might need to have it as a 3 of if you are expecting to be able to do the powerful Lurrus things a lot, and if you're putting a lot of cards like Deadweight or Mishra's Bauble into your deck. So.
Yep. There's another card in this deck that was interesting with Lurrus. Hold on. Oh, right, Mishra's Bauble. Mishra's Bauble is back, I guess.
Yeah. Mistress Bauble is a very strong way to get your Lurrus to provide you with early card advantage.
Yep.
The fact that it's 0 mana, so if you were to have a Moxen, you play your Lurrus on turn 2, and then you can go Bauble, Crack Bauble, Bauble, Crack Bauble, and draw 2 cards on your next turn. Starts to really make your Lurrus actually powerful. Because if your Lurrus isn't bringing anything back, you're playing a 3 mana 3/2.
Repeal targeting the top.
Yep. With the top activation on the stack, hold priority repeal so that you can draw 2 cards.
Cool.
Or, well, you draw 1 card and your top. It's basically just a way to cycle through and get a little extra card advantage off this repeal.
Okay. Yep. I like
Sorry,
it.
3, 4, tap. Yeah, because when you hold priority and activate your top, if your top is no longer there, it will no longer go on the top of your library. So, actually
Right.
draws 2 cards.
Right. Okay.
PO things.
Fair enough.
I played 2 repeal in a lot of my PO decks. It's just a nice catch-all answer and can provide these little extra spots where you really need to get to a new card. Ooh, 5. Oh,
Ouch.
this Bob has betrayed Evan right now. 4. This is a sometimes your life total is a resource in Vintage, and right now with one player at 4 and one player at 8, a Bob on one side and a Mana Crypt on the other, their own cards might just kill them off.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the people tuning in right now bought tickets to see Lurrus. I think this would be a really good time for Lurrus to make an appearance with a lifelink.
Yeah, that would help.
It would. Let's
But
see.
it's no longer a companion, so you don't always have it. Ooh, wow, a Null Rod. Okay.
Well, treasure tokens may be shut off now.
Wow, yeah. Actually, 5 mana. It shuts off 5 mana.
Oh, and the Mana Crypt. You're right. Yep.
That's really strong. It shuts off 2 mana on the Esper Lurrus side, but
Yeah.
oh man. It looks like it resolved as well. So we got some things in response, it looks like.
Yep.
Tune in real
Jesse
quick and see what they're
thinking
floating.
about. Okay, he floated mana. Yeah. Yeah, both players are kind of in limbo right now too, because that Mana Crypt also is going to deal some damage.
Oh, Vamp 2?
Vamp and
Down
response.
to 4?
Sheesh.
Wow. That turns off Force of Will. Well, it doesn't turn off Force of Will, but it potentially turns off Force of Will based on this Mana Crypt flip.
Right.
Because Force will cost a life, and you don't want to be paying 1 life when you have 1 life.
Wait, so what is he tutor for, you think?
When you're not tutoring for Tinker, I don't know. Let's see. What kind of breach combo pieces do they have? Well, it's hard to breach combo when there's a Null Rod in play.
Yes.
The breach combo
that's
being
true.
Black Lotus and Brain Freeze.
It's basically shut off. He's likely going to tutor for an answer, right?
Yeah, but the
Problem
Lightning Bolt
solver?
is already in the yard, and they don't
Right.
have the mana to go Breach Bolt. So the only other answer in the deck is a Braid that was brought in post board, which oh no, there's a second bolt actually.
Oh, there is a second bolt. Yeah.
So Lightning
yeah.
Bolt or a Braid. A Braid does kill the Null Rod. Ooh, Narset. It's a good one too.
That is a good one. And that's restricted now, right? Am I right?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. That card.
You sound like you're scarred.
That card caused so much pain for me as a PO player. Unrestricted. I basically had to build a completely new PO deck for the last Eternal weekend because of that card existing.
Oh, what's this flustered for? Oh, I'm sorry. That was a Narset activation.
Found it off the thing that lets your opponents never draw cards also just impulses twice. It's a fair card.
I've whiffed before.
I whiffed. Oh yeah. Oh, down to 1. Ooh.
Down to 1. It's rough.
I don't know what the combination of cards here that draw to get the Tinker player out of this game. Yixit?
It's a blocker.
It does.
Shuts
That it
off.
does. But I believe we know that there's a Force of Will in the Esper player's hand.
So
I can't
wh-
remember that was from, but I think there's a Force of Will. Oh, maybe not. All right, this Dark Confidant could kill them. Oh, safe. If it hit Force of Will, they were dead.
So
Dig Through Time.
maybe this is a vintage newbie rules question, but why did he bring in Yix Lid Jailer, and does that shut off Underworld Breach? His own Underworld Breach?
Uh, okay, so it does not shut off under his own Underworld Breach, and the reason is the cards have no effects, but then when the breach comes into play, they gain the effects, and they don't get reset because the jailer is in play.
Gotcha. The layers thing.
So
Okay.
it's a timestamp thing. So if you
Yep.
had an Underworld Breach and you brought back a jailer, then all of your cards that you could breach now you can't breach.
Okay, that makes
But
sense. That
jailer's
makes
been a
sense.
really interesting, neat tech from the breach decks recently, because it's a harder card for the dredge decks to interact with.
So what is Jesse using it for here? It doesn't affect Lurrus, does
I
it?
I don't think so. Pretty sure you can just play it on the Lurrus side.
Yeah.
Just read Lurrus again.
Cards in graveyards lose all abilities, but it's not an ability. It's just you can cast it from the grave if it's
Yeah,
CMC 2 or less.
I don't believe that stops Lurrus in any way.
Yeah, so I wonder
Let me
why
just look at
Jesse
the
brought in
Lurrus deck
Yix Lid
real
Jailer.
quick. The Lurrus deck's not playing Cabal Therapy, right? That's just a me thing. Okay, that's just a me thing.
All right,
Yeah, I don't believe that you would want to bring in Jailer. In fact, the Esper Lurrus list has Jailers in their sideboard. All
yeah.
right, so
Okay.
who died?
Crypt finished off Jesse. Jesse's gone, so we're going to game 3.
How? Demonic Tutor for removal spell? I missed it. I was looking at
Uh,
Lurrus's.
Yeah, me too.
Jailers.
That's
I
the thing
assume
with this.
I saw a demonic tutor, so I assume a removal spell for the jailer and then an attack with the dark confidant with the opponent at 1 was probably the answer.
Probably, yeah. Chat was unanimously voting for Breach Tinker. Now, I don't know if people just vote for their favorite deck or if they really think they're gonna win or what, but I just think that's funny. So chat thinks this is a 100% favored matchup for Breach Tinker.
I think it's a pretty back and forth matchup.
Yeah, it seems.
I think
it seems
Esper
somewhat
has
even.
more tools though, where the breach player is the Esper is obviously the control deck in this situation where they're trying to stop the breach player from doing something unfair.
Yeah.
Well, it's not exactly Birgi, Andy, because there's only one Birgi in the deck. It's more of a Tinker breach deck.
Yeah.
It's
Unfortunately,
kind of an amalgamation of a lot of things that are going on that you can do in the Grixis card pool.
yeah, exactly.
Oh my! Wow, that is a very
Explosive
pretty
first
set
turn,
of
yeah.
boxing.
So we have
CE. They're just proxy actually. But great
Yeah.
proxies.
We have 7 minutes left to the round. Chat wondering if this goes to turns in 7 minutes. And yeah, what do you think?
Depends on if Tinker resolves.
I guess.
That's actually that's a lot of games of vintage right now. Do the Tinker resolve? But this is a lot of fast mana on the breach side. So if the breach player has a tutor, like a demonic tutor, start finding your combo pieces. We haven't actually seen a breach kill. I don't believe. I don't remember what happened in game 1 was a Tinker kill.
Yes.
The nice part about this version of breach is that it has multiple ways to win. You can do the Tinker things, or you can do the breach combo, or you can attack with hull breachers, I guess.
Right. Yes, if you jam emotes, they float across the screen. Across the screen,
Really?
excuse me. Miniature catfish.
You shouldn't have told me that one. That's bad for the stream.
Yeah, jam emotes like crazy, everybody. Go nuts.
I like that though. Yeah, I have a friend who streams who has that feature. It's really cool.
I like that feature. It was a little laggy just now, though. I don't know why.
Oh, I did too many powerful emotes.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, this is actually something that I've been advocating though, in terms of deck building and vintage. Is I think you need to make sure when you're playing a combo deck that you provide yourself with alternative game plans and multiple avenues to win the game. Going all in on a combo plan can be very detrimental when cards like Null Rod and
Oh, no rod
Lavinia
just slammed.
and Graveyard Hate exist. That's a hard cast force. Beautiful.
I dig it.
That's a turn 2 hard cast force. Oh, force back. Okay. I mean, this Null Rod is insane. Turning off 3 cards for 1 is. Oh, it resolved.
Yikes. Well, that was an interesting exchange.
Yeah. Snake brings up that, or sorry, Asphalt brings up that Doomsday doesn't have a backup plan. That's not 100% true, because some Doomsday sometimes play a Delve creature in the sideboard to attack with. But Doomsday is probably the more all-in of the combo decks in Vintage, because it gets to play a million permission spells. But like for my PO decks, I want to be able to make a way to attack for lethal, a way to combo with the Citadel for lethal. And you want to try to use the least number of card slots to give your win for your win conditions as possible as well. Ooh.
All right, there's Lurrus.
What's
Proxy
going?
Lurrus.
Oh, this is a Gataxian probe. Okay.
Oh, okay. Proxy
Um,
Lurrus, Proxy Fluster Storm, Mystic Sanctuary, and Narset.
But yeah, it comes up more in decks like Underworld Breach that have a primary game plan that uses the graveyard. So Breach is in the unfortunate position where it can get hit by both Graveyard Hate and Artifact Hate. So sometimes you'll see a Breach player play Sprite Dragon in their sideboard, or sometimes you'll see the Breach players like this deck go for a Tinker Plan in the main deck. So you have a couple different ways to attack your opponent if you were to, say, get hit by a Leyline of the Void or a Null Rod.
Right. People are just keep gemming emotes now. It's funny. Keep doing it, everybody. I don't mind.
Yeah, we should definitely see some IMAC cats in chat with the Lurrus.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of your face. We saw cats. We saw. That's hilarious. You must have a lot of emotes.
Yeah, we got a bunch more emotes when I hit Twitch Partner. Got like 4 more slots. So
yeah, belated congrats on that. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Oh, so what happened here?
So the Breach player is very far behind now because the Null Rod resolved turning off 3 Moxen. Ooh, hold up, wait a minute. There is a Flusterstorm in Evan's hand. However, they tapped out to play an Narset, which is a fair thing to do. The best response possible for the Breach player is to cast Ancestral, and that's what they did.
Yep. Narset resolved, though. Unfortunately, or
So
fortunately.
did Ancestral.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think... Oh, God, they found a force off of Narset. And this is why Narset got restricted. It did. Not only can the Breach player no longer draw cards with their Preordains, though they've actually cast most of their Preordains in this game, it also just found a counterspell for free.
Yeah, I guess maybe Vintage, now that I think about it, Vintage has the most density of non-creature cards in decks out of all formats.
Oh, for sure. I think that's definitely the case.
So maybe that's a big part of it, too. Force on the Power Blast.
Nice. That went really, really well.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the perfect sequence for the Breach pilot. Kills the Narset, got rid of both the Flusterstorm and the Force of Will out of the Lurrus player's hand. So they're left with just Lurrus that they can't cast because they have their Island and their Sanctuary. And a Null Rod.
Thank you, Roland, for adding time to the clock. You can add time to the clock with channel points, everybody.
That does nothing.
Double Null Rod. Well, some redundancy, I guess.
No, it actually is pretty important because I think the big way for the Breach player to execute their game plan is to get rid of the Null Rod within a braid.
Yep.
But this is something that can happen in your Lurrus decks. Lurrus is not a blue card. So almost every one of these decks is going to play 1 island, 1 sanctuary, and then sometimes some number of wasteland and strip mine. And you can very easily find yourself in a position where you cannot cast your cat.
Do you think some people are going to alter their, maybe even main decks, but I'll just say sideboards to respect Lurrus, adding cards that, like Grafdigger's Cages or something like that? Do you think it's,
I think the big respect you can show to Lurrus is to play removal. And I think that's something people should have already been doing because of the prominence of that Noblefish deck that I talked about recently. The combo decks need to be able to kill an Archon of Emeria. And if they can't kill the Archon of Emeria, they're going to have a really bad time. So cards like Lightning Bolt, Fatal Push. If you're playing your own Lurrus, you can play these like Deadweights and these kind of things. I think the answer to Lurrus is usually not to attack the graveyard. It's usually to just kill the Lurrus because it is a creature.
So a Gush basically just got countered by that Hull Breacher. And
That's
now
insane.
Jesse has some useless treasure, but it's something.
Oh, wow. Picked up the Tundra, so they couldn't swords on the stack.
Yep.
Wow. This is a comeback. That Ancestral Recall for Jesse was very potent. It drew exactly what they needed at the time.
Yep.
It is unfortunate that they lose the... No. It is unfortunate they lost the Hull Breacher because that is one of their ways to... This has just been a back and forth, very heavy interaction game.
Yeah.
Yeah, the big thing with Hull Breacher into Gush is it kind of puts the tempo and the mana advantage back on the side of the player who has 3 dead Moxen, which is crazy to me.
It's true.
Okay, what does this Merchant Scroll get? They cannot get Ancestral, so it's probably Dig Through Time, if that's in their deck.
Is there anything that can
Repeal would
force?
bounce a No Rod, but there's 2 No Rods in play, so it's kind of impossible.
Can you get by force with it? Oh, that's a sorcery.
No, Merchant Scroll is blue instance.
Yeah, my bad. Never mind. I got
which
excited.
is something I've been thinking. That's actually something I've been thinking about recently. I want to go on a tangent here.
All right, do it.
I was Merchant Scroll is very restrictive in the cards that it tutors for. For the most part, 80% of games is going to get Ancestral Recall. Sometimes it gets Force of Will or Flusterstorm or Dig Through Time, depending on the state of the game. And in the PO deck can get PO. But something that I noticed when I was playing, I was just testing out like a blue-black standstill list. And when I was able to get Drown in the Lock with my Merchant Scroll, I was a very happy person. So I was wondering about other decks that other color combinations that could find blue multicolored removal spells.
The
one that came to mind is obviously Drown in the Lock, but then I was thinking like, is it Charm maybe? Or
is it Charm? Yeah.
I was just like, thinking about that. I was like,
multicolored?
if my Merchant Scroll can find removal, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Oh, you mean because they're blue and they're removal? I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Because most of the time, your Merchant Scroll is finding you draw spells or counter spells because those are what blue instants do.
Does Fire Ice work?
I have no idea.
I think that does work actually.
Probably.
Counts as a blue card.
That's a classic.
Maybe
Probably better than Is It Charm too.
Turn Burn, I believe, is the name of the card. It's like a removal spell and a swap power toughness card for some obscure card.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a line of thinking that I was thinking about recently. Because if your deck, if you're playing this combo deck, right, and we just talked about the importance of being able to kill a Lurrus or an Archon, you want to have some kind of removal that you can tutor for.
Given that it's vintage too, you gotta pick out. You gotta like browse through Scryfall and pick out some 9 mana.
What happened?
Gigantic removal spell.
That's a Tinker.
Yep, it's getting flustered though.
Okay, so it got Mysticaled and then No, it didn't get cast. Wait, what just happened?
Yeah, you cast a Tinker and it looks like it got flustered.
Did they sacrifice something for this Tinker? Maybe a treasure?
Yeah, maybe.
They need to make sure they sacrifice something if they cast Tinker.
I believe they sacked a treasure because otherwise he would have 2 treasures.
Okay, the treasures have been locked down because of No Rod, so it definitely was a treasure. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. Okay, that's a top deck Ancestral.
Yep.
Jeez, this game has been just back and forth, great top decks from both players, and made it a very interesting game because either side could have very easily ran away with this game if the other didn't have an answer.
Agreed.
Ancestral Recall is a lot more fun when both players get to have it.
Yeah, I guess.
Wait.
Pure Dane.
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes for a more interesting game. If only one player has an Ancestral Recall, it's usually close.
But that's what you want when you're the player, right? You don't want your opponent to.
Oh,
have it.
yeah,
This
sure.
is what I was getting at. Yeah.
We're looking over both the whole table right here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a 3-power attacker.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Lurrus is also a 3-power attacker. Though Lurrus doesn't return anything right now, and even if it did return anything, Null Rod shuts off a lot of the things that Lurrus returns.
Right.
I don't know how many cards are in the hand of the Lurrus player right now, but looks like one other one or two other ones.
Yeah, it looks like Lurrus and one unknown maybe.
I'm trying to visualize what the Pro Tour advantage bar would look like right now.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it would be slightly towards Evan, just because he has those two null rods in play, but
Because he resolved an ancestral.
yeah, that too.
And also, I mean, both sides have the mana now to do spells, which is nice. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, that's pretty
This
damn
is something that happens in Vintage when you resolve an ancestral. It typically leads to even more cards.
good. Yep. Advantage Evan, Roland agrees. Okay.
To be fair, this Birgi does help negate what Null Rod would do to stop Underworld Breach. Like the
Yep.
Null Rod stops you from returning Black Lotus and Lotus Petal and making mana, but the Birgi kind of helps with that mana. So I'm not 100% sure what a combo kill with a Breach from this situation would look like, but it might be possible. The big thing is it makes red mana and not blue mana. So you would have to kind of use all of your blue mana to be the brain freeze parts.
Well, what does he need to have in hand right now to do something?
Well, I don't know what's in the yard, but if for say there was a brain freeze in the yard and you went Underworld Breach and then you cast brain freeze for 1 blue and made a red and use the blue, cast brain freeze again. I feel like we just run out of blue mana at some point. That's the big problem. It doesn't matter anymore. This Swords of Plowshares.
Yeah, Plow took it out.
But I feel like it was an avenue to maybe enabling a powerful breach turn. It's possible that a breach turn would just look like cast a couple ancestrals targeting themselves.
Yep.
Just as like a mini value Yogwill kind of play.
Yep. Just a minute left here in the round. We've added like 7 minutes to the clock thanks to chat. Thank you everybody who's redeeming channel points. Chat's enjoying the match.
It's a great game.
It has
I don't know
been,
about
yeah.
the other two. The other two games they weren't even bad, but this game has been crazy. Seesaw. Vamp. Is this upkeep or I'm not sure.
I'm not sure, yeah. Unfortunately.
Looks like it's just a main phase while the Lurrus player is tapped out.
That makes sense, I guess. Yeah, so
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say sideboards are obfuscated, so you can't see quantity in the sideboard if that's what you're looking at, Scoot. There are 2 null rods. What were you gonna say?
That's what I was gonna say.
Oh. All right.
Yeah, I would expect if this list is built the way I would think it. Yeah, 2 null rods makes the most sense.
Yeah.
It depends. I'm not 100% sure. Two null rods will be the end point. It's possible the end point of this deck will be 1 null rod in the sideboard that you can tutor for. It really will depend on the metagame at the time.
Yep.
Demonic.
Demonic Tutor, okay. So that's Lurrus, and yeah, the cat is live, and
Lightning Bolt on Lurrus.
oh, nice.
And it did actually nothing. I mean, it 1-for-1 with a Lightning Bolt, so it didn't do nothing, but
yeah, didn't get to cast
Lurrus
anything
it's something that I bring up and I get memed on a little bit, but the cards that people like to complain about recently, a lot of them are not like Narset, where they are planeswalkers. They've been creatures, and a lot of them have had 3 toughness.
It's true.
These things just die.
though.
Just play some interaction in your deck.
I'm gonna let
Hull
the players
Breacher,
know that's
Lavinia,
time.
Opposition Agent, which I actually have seen a lot of those cards in this game. Dreadhorde Arcanist, Birgi, all of these cards are 3 toughness creatures.
True. Hang on one sec. I'm just gonna let the players know that's time.
Yep. Time?
What's up, guys?
Okay.
That's time. So whoever it is turn 0 now.
Okay. That's me.
The bad part is this Esper player definitely can't win in 5 turns.
All right. So yeah. So Jesse on the right is turn 0. And we don't have any draws
So-
on our channel, just so everybody's clear on this. If you're tuning in for the first time, there are no draws. If the round does not end in these 5 turns, chat will decide who the winner is, and that person will move on to the next round. That's how we do it. This is a
Okay,
completely
alright.
corrupt tournament.
Oh, all right, all right.
It's made for some fun moments.
I was not aware of that, but
Yeah.
that is a way to do it. Yeah. So the Esper player, like we actually talked about this earlier in the game when you were talking about going to time. The Esper player attacks with 2 and 3 power creatures. They don't really do the traditional unfair things that a lot of vintage decks are going to be doing. And so when you get into turns like this, it's just I don't think it'll be possible for them to attack enough times. Whereas the Breach player has a lot of powerful things, but looks like they're pretty locked out of doing the powerful things. They already tried to cast an Underworld Breach, which is their most powerful play, and it was just countered.
Yeah, miniature catfish in chat has the right idea that they're willing to be bribed if either player is interested. I'm all for it. Our tournaments are completely corrupt. The players themselves vote in the polls, so yeah.
Oh man,
This
it's
is
a
not
tough one 'cause
legitimate.
I'm not even sure who I would vote for because both players played a great match.
Well, keep in mind.
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I don't get to vote.
No, you do get to vote. You can vote as many times as you want.
I'm making my case.
Yeah, so people vote with bits and channel points, and then a lot of
Okay.
people also vote for the player that they already committed channel points in the prediction poll. So
Ah.
it just turns into a mess.
Okay.
Yeah, which makes it fun.
It's tough because I think I like the Esper deck more. I think it's more interesting, but the webcam quality on this on the Breach side is just it's really nice. So from a commentating perspective,
That's perfectly
I'm not
perfectly
sure.
fine if that factors in. All right, so I think that's a draw. Let me check in with the players just real quick.
I
Most
don't know where my
certainly.
creatures were. The whole.
What's up, guys? So that's a draw.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
a
so.
draw.
All right, we're gonna
Sorry.
do a chat poll here. I'm gonna mute myself
All right.
and
right.
I'll get back to you in a minute.
Okay.
All right, chat. It's your job now. I'm gonna set this up. This is very exciting stuff. I'm gonna do it for. What do you think? What do you think, Justin? 1 minute, 2 minutes?
2 minutes sounds fine.
All right. Who is the winner? Evan with Esper Lurrus or Jesse with. I hate when I make typos in these. I'm gonna be extra careful, everybody. Jesse with Breach Tinker. And the poll starts now. You have 2 minutes to decide the winner. You can vote with bits or channel points. And yes, you can be as corrupt as you like.
Oh, all my point. Well, then I can't bet. This is tough. It's tough. I want to keep my points to be able to bet next round.
Yeah. This is
I guess I'm just gonna cast my vote here. Never mind.
All right. I'm not voting.
You gotta have money to make money. You know?
Yeah. I am the only person that doesn't vote. I'm not able to.
Yeah, mods can't vote. It's sad. Can't manipulate it.
Sometimes when it's really dire, I log in through my secret second Twitch account and I vote many times.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. I made
It's
that up.
close. It's close.
It is close. It is close. What do we have? Like a minute left? Evan and Jesse are probably jamming all their channel points right now too. This is completely
what is
corrupt.
the point? What's the point ratio? If I vote with my channel points, like how much percentage are we getting in here?
I don't know. I guess it just counts as one vote. Yeah, it's just one vote each time. So right now the votes are 32 to 24 in favor of Jesse. And it's just kind of paused right now. Roland voted for cats. Everybody in chat wants to vote for cats, but cats are losing the poll.
You guys gotta use your channel points to vote for cat if you need to save the cat's life. You know, you don't want to be a cat killer.
All right.
Look at IMAX cats in chat. You mean like it's just
Yep. Cats.
Come on, guys.
Cats losing the popular vote. The winner is going to play against Gordon Felstead, who's playing 4-color Ephemerate, if that affects anybody's vote.
I vote for duplicating the Ephemerate deck and playing a mirror match.
All right.
That deck is sweet.
Looks like we're really close. We're like really close here.
The comeback! was so close.
Oh, by one vote. Bo
my
Peep
lord.
contributed 10 bits. Thank you for that. And Roland MTG contributed 2,800 channel points, flexing on all of you. Jesse
I
is the
could've-
winner with
I
Breach
could have
Tinker,
given us
everybody.
a tie. What was I doing?
Nearly a tie. What's up, Evan and Jesse?
What's up?
What's up? Hey.
So the court has decided that Jesse is the winner. Jesse is the winner
Alright.
by one vote. It was
Wow.
almost 50-50 right down the middle. So congratulations, Jesse. This is a life-changing moment for you. You're moving on to round 2. Congratulations.
All right.
Thank
Early
you.
night.
Well, good game, man. Thank you, crowd.
Chat
I know it was that sword.
Thank
I
you,
know it was that sword that got me.
Chat ruined Evan's night. Thanks, chat. All right. All jokes aside, thank you to Evan for hanging out with us. Excuse me, I almost choked. Quick break here. When we come back, Gordon will be joining us with 4-Color Ephemerate. So 4-Color Ephemerate versus Breach Tinker after a short break, everybody.